50 years ago, there was a phenomena seemed to come out of the hydrogen bomb, and a CIA scheme to use LSD for mind control, triggering the greatest revolution in consciousness since time unfolded. In a world of conformity, it came to be called hip. To explore the American dream was the trip. Equality, freedom, amidst the hypocritical rapidness and vapidness. Otherwise, why did they promise us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? We wanted to turn them on, but nobody dug. All anyone cared about was the sex and drugs. We were trying to solve the problems and systemic bugs, but rather than report on the scandals and thugs, all the media reported on was the sex and drugs. You could have predicted the self-fulfilling prophecy. The consciousness was lost in the theosophy. It brought viewers, it sold papers, they were getting high on their own papers. We were trying to find the world's salvation, exploring the oneness of creation. I'd have even rather just talked about the fugs, but all anyone cared about was the sex and drugs. All they cared about was the sex and drugs. I mean, you know, baby boom, Cold War, plastic food, plastic clothes, thinking what for? America fighting itself over the Vietnam War. Whether you were against it or for, the looming catastrophes were growing critical. The population curve turned vertical. Toxic waste mutating our life forms. Food perverted, spin control called it processed. Subliminal advertising. Talk about moral turpitude and pandering. Substitute things for joy, profit over food, air, and water, profit over everything. Sound pollution till you can't hear the birds sing. We tried to tell them, but they just shrugged. All anyone cared about was the sex and drugs. We were looking for something, learning, awareness, consciousness, but all they cared about was the sex and drugs. You know, new paradigms, you know, that there was an ecosystem, the nervous system, in the brain, and the mystic unseen forces not yet known, and all they cared about was the sex and drugs. I mean, talk about firsts at a new level. And, you know, we tried to talk about it and to warn everybody. And, you know, their spirits being deprived of nourishment, but all they cared about, they didn't care about the fugs or the hugs or the bugs or the frogs or the thugs or the lugs or the rugs or the tugs or the mugs or the slugs. And the only reason they cared about the jugs is all they care about was the sex and drugs. That's all they cared about, folks. There was a whole thing happening. The changes were coming. We were talking about it, but all anybody cared about was the sex and drugs.